The Day the Earth Stood Still from 1951 is a film I consider one of the greatest science fiction classics ever. It's got a great story, wonderful acting, and enough elements of mystery and suspense to really keep you wondering what's going to happen. Is the world doomed and will aliens take over and so on? It's a great movie and it's got a lot going for it, including that legendary music by Bernard Herrmann as the film opens. It just tops it all perfectly. Well, the film opens up right away. We get into the action as news goes around worldwide that something mysterious has been detected traveling around the planet. And sure enough, this glowing disc is seen flying over Washington, D.C., and this saucer lands on the mall, and the military arrive, and all these people crowd around to see what it is. Well, it eventually opens up, and out comes this alien guy, Klaatu, and he's complete with the fishbowl-looking helmet, and he announces that they arrive in peace. Now, he approaches some jittery-looking soldiers, and he's holding out what looks like a weapon thingy, but it could also have been a mashed potato blender. But one of the jittery soldiers mistakes it for a weapon and fires, and drops the poor alien guy to the ground. But he's soon joined by his big robotic friend, Gort. And this guy is huge and cool-looking, and he comes out with the ominous music. His visor slowly opens and he starts disintegrating the weapons of the troops with his cool eye beam. So the character Klaatu is played by actor Michael Rennie. And he does a great job here too. He kind of has an otherworldly alien look to him to begin with. Well, he tells the big robot something in his own language, and the robot stops. And then the troops bring the injured alien guy into their hospital for treatment. And he heals up pretty quickly, being an alien and all. But I mean, good thing he must have a similar anatomy to humans because they were able to treat him, but don't read into it too much. The president's advisor, Mr. Harley, played by actor Frank Conroy, comes and meets with Klaatu, and we find out that Klaatu wants to meet with representatives of the world to talk about the dangers of the atomic weapons and so on. But Mr. Harley tells him frankly that the world is full of tensions and suspicions. Yeah, not that much different from things today, I guess, Klaatu. And they are unable to get all of the leaders together, in a big conference for him to speak to them. But he asks Klaatu to continue to stay there. But after he leaves, that wily Klaatu, he sneaks away. He's up to something. And sure enough, he sneaks out into town. He's put on a suit and stuff, just blending in. And he finds a place to rent under the alias of the name Mr. Carpenter. So he finds this rental place and just blends right in. He meets a whole bunch of characters, a lot of familiar faces from the past, including Mrs. Crockett, who's actress Edith Evanson. She was also one of the characters in Alfred Hitchcock's film Rope. There's also Mrs. Barley, Frances Bavier, who was Aunt Bee from Mulberry. There's Helen Benson, Patricia Neal, and her son Bobby, actor Billy Gray. And like I said, he just sort of blends in as this traveler. And no one seems to suspect anything at first. Now, one of the characters asks him, "You're a long way from home, aren't you, Mr. Carpenter?" I love it. That's a great line, and I think they used the same line in Superman 4. You have the character Tom Stevens, played by Hugh Marlowe, who shows up to see Patricia. And I guess they're dating, and they're off to a romantic picnic. Klaatu, meanwhile, asks if her son Bobby can take him around the city to, I guess, show him the sights and stuff. It's a little weird to let a suspicious stranger babysit your son, but why not? It's the 1950s. So Billy takes Klaatu out, and the first thing they go to is the cemetery to visit his dad's grave. Real downer there, Billy. I mean, why wouldn't you start things with ice cream or something? But anyhow, they go around town. They also visit the Lincoln Monument, as well as the saucer that continues to sit there. And Klaatu is, of course, learning all about what it means to be human and that stuff. And Klaatu wants to meet with someone really smart and educated, and Bobby suggests this American scientist, this Professor Jacob Barnhart. So they head over to his place. Now, he's not home, but Klaatu, seeing this elaborate formula on his chalkboard, helps him kind of finish it up, Good Will Hunting style. Oh, that cheeky Klaatu. Well, later this professor, he gets home, sees the formula, figures out what's going on, and he summons for Klaatu. Now, the professor is played here by Sam Jaffe. I've seen him in a number of films. He was notably in The Asphalt Jungle. He was one of the conspirators of that big robbery film. It's a great film, by the way. And after talking with Klaatu, he is able to convince his professor to gather some of the leading scientists so he can demonstrate to the world the alien power that they wield. Well, Patricia is off on her date with Tom, and Klaatu's at the house. He's chatting with Bobby about trains and so on, and wouldn't it be cool if trains could run without tracks, that sort of thing. And he asks to borrow a flashlight. And then Klaatu sneaks out into the night, but Bobby secretly follows. Klaatu goes to the spaceship and uses the flashlight to signal to the robot, like a Morse code type of thing, to basically animate and club the guards so that he can sneak in and get to the ship. Now, I will admit that part seemed a little bit weird. I mean, that he needed to borrow a flashlight to signal his robot friend. I mean, they've mastered faster than light travel and come from another world, but he needs a flashlight. Whatever. It's the 1950s. I guess that kind of thing was what you would expect back then. But anyhow, he sneaks into his ship, but Bobby sees it all from the shadows. Aha, it's finally the suspicions about him. Well, Bobby rushes home. He tells his mother all about it, and although his mom is very suspicious and doesn't seem to buy it, the next day, however, Klaatu goes and finds her and speaks to her. Around the same time, it's around noon, when globally, Klaatu gives the signal of his power. And sure enough, boom, all the lights go off. All the power goes off globally. And, I love scenes like this because it's an interesting window into the past. Because when the power goes out, the things we see shut down are things like old trains, a tractor, a milkshake machine, etc. It's not like today where it'd be like, oh no, my phone stopped working or my laptop. Anyhow, it does make me wonder if anybody died from planes falling from the sky, but we'll let that one go too. Now, Patricia meets with Tom to discuss what's going on with Klaatu. She knows he's an alien and everything, and Tom starts making phone calls, wanting to take care of things, and he starts getting into that power trip. You'll feel different when you see my picture in the papers. That sort of thing. Well, Patricia won't have any of it, and she dumps him. Now, the military folks, they're starting to get more alarmed. There's a big lockdown in D.C., and the troops are on the move to apprehend Klaatu. What will happen to Klaatu and to his robot friend? What will happen to the world? Is this the end of humanity? Well, with about 15 minutes left in the film, that's kind of my summary of it. I don't want to give too much more away. But the ending is really great. Now, semi-spoiler. I'm not going to ruin the ending, but don't come into this expecting like a gigantic laser battle with Terminators and the military and so on. It's a little bit more of a subdued ending, but it's still pretty cool. It's got a very much a classic Star Trek vibe to it. And that's just one of my initial closing thoughts, is this reminded me of Star Trek in a lot of ways. I can't help but see that Gene Roddenberry probably watched something like this and took inspiration, especially when they talk about Klaatu coming from this futuristic society, kind of a federation of aliens and so on, and how they're monitoring humans. I think I've seen elements of this in Star Trek, both in the episodes and some of the films as well. And, I love these old classic spooky films because when I watch them, I try to see it through the eyes of folks who would have been in the theaters in the 1950s. Back before today, when everything was just awash with a sea of bad CGI, this is back in a time when this would have been something very new, eerie, and unexpected. And you think of the context. World War II has just recently ended. We've got the Soviet Russia as the big menace. And, the Cold War is just kicking off. And we wouldn't see the Cold War come to a conclusion until 1985 when Rocky Balboa defeated Ivan Drago. Robert Wise was the director, and I've reviewed some of his films before. He directed The Haunting, The Sound of Music, and Star Trek The Motion Picture, the one with the long V'ger flyover sequences. The direction here is clear. It's not overly action-packed, but rather it just tells a thoughtful story, built a lot on dialogue and character interaction. As I mentioned, there's not a lot of science fiction elements and big battles with robots and aliens and so on, but it's still an excellent, thoughtful film. Michael Rennie does this fantastic job as Klaatu, and I really love his quiet, studied manner as he goes around with that occasional faint smile. It's kind of like he's saying to himself, stupid humans, I could incinerate all of you if I wanted to. He's got that really cool manner, that tall, lanky character who almost looks like an alien, but he's also very believable and sympathetic. You really want to see what he's up to, and if he will succeed with his mission. And you know, I have to say this, watching this Klaatu character and how he sort of blends in with people, it reminded me of this old Monty Python skit with Mr. Neutron, the most powerful and most dangerous being in the universe. He's able to destroy galaxies with his wrist and tear fruit machines apart with his eyeballs, you know, that sort of thing. And similar to the film, the skit features this insanely powerful character. And, you know, the US government desperately wants to find him, but he's just hiding out in the suburbs in England, and he's chatting with the locals casually about eating salad and yogurt. And of course, no one even remotely suspects who he is, even though he's clearly this massive superhero-looking character with exaggerated features. I have a link to the skit below, and it's hilarious. But that is what came to mind, is that's the theme, is basically this extremely powerful alien, but he spends most of his time in the film in hiding, just disguised as a normal human being, and he just blends in just to study, just to listen, just to kind of gauge what's going on with people. I did a little research, and there's an interesting backstory about the origin of this film. I guess the producer, Julian Blaustein, noted the sales popularity of adult science fiction magazines in the United States. Yeah, you know, it's a different world when there's a lot of people reading adult science fiction magazines. And he asked the assistant story editor, Maurice Hanlon, to find a science fiction story that they could make into a film. So Hanlon found a reprinting of the story Farewell to the Master by writer Harry Bates, which first appeared in Astounding Magazine in October 1940. And it's actually pretty cool. You can find this actual issue on the Internet Archive if you want to see the actual magazine and the story they based it on. I put that link in the description. It's a great science fiction story, and like mentioned before, you know, it doesn't go too heavy on special effects or action, but it's a thinking film about what it would mean for an alien from another world to visit Earth during the beginning of the atomic era. Now, Bernard Herrmann's music is, as mentioned, fantastic. You know, I love hearing his scores for things like Hitchcock films. I mean, notably, he did the music from Psycho. But here in this film, the orchestrations are very interesting, as Bernard Herrmann removed all of the woodwinds from the orchestra, and he focuses the arrangements on the brass section and those weird electronically implanted strings. And of course, the theremin is featured prominently. You know, that I love it. It's got that weird, creepy sound to it, and it always reminds me, truth be told, of Elmer Bernstein's music from the original Ghostbusters film. So that's great. I mean, you got to listen to that music just by itself. It's so impressive. Now, the big robot Gort was played by Locke Martin, who apparently was a doorman at Grauman's Chinese Theater and was a very tall man at 7'7", which is crazy. But he was also physically very weak, and there's a scene where he picks up Helen, but in real life he was unable to do so without the assistance of wires to lift her up. So, final thought. I know that there was a sequel, I guess, that was made to this film in 2008 with Keanu Reeves, but I don't think that's one I'm going to bother with. You know, usually when I go into a film, I start researching and I'll look at the Internet Movie Database, and if I see a low rating, I'll check out why. And look, reviews that get low ratings, it doesn't always skew if I want to see the film or not. I mean, there's plenty of films out there that people have rated poorly that I think are gems. And truth be told, I've got a list of so many films I still want to get to. I'm going to take a hard pass on the remake. Anyhow, that's The Day the Earth Stood Still from 1951, a science fiction classic worth checking out. And until next time, Klaatu Barada Nikto.